As you're coming in, say hello. I don't want to be with you very long. I know it's been quite some time, but I do want to spend some time with you. This may be a doozy, but it's necessary. Kina the Real, hello. Lawanda somebody. Brandon Clack, I love you. Hey, Pastor Jason, love you. Greetings to all of you. Pastor Joshua, hello. I know. Pastor Marquita, love you. Hey, Jock Edwards, I think I saw you in here. Hey, everybody. So good to see all of you. All of you, hello. Well, it's late. I'm getting ready to fly out, and I got an event this weekend. I will be in Dunwoody, Georgia, with Pastor Mary Crum, Apostle Buddy Crum, and we're going to be at the Apostles and Prophets gathering in Dunwoody. I'll be there preaching tomorrow night, which is Friday night in Georgia, and Saturday morning. So if you're in the Georgia area, I want you to come on and be a part of this meeting. I do have a word from the Lord, and it's going to be amazing at the Life Center Church, and it's going to be awesome. So if you are anywhere in the area, good to see you, Hightower. If you are anywhere in the area, come and be a part of that. All right. Warning, this is going to be one of them. And this is going to be a doozy, but we need to talk about it. And we need to share some things about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a bit about my journey. I'm going to talk to you a bit about what we're talking about tonight. And hopefully we're going to bring some help. Because the thing that I've been dealing with back to back to back to back, and I'm probably going to deal with it back to back to back to back, probably to the end of the year, is distraction. And I believe this is going to give some counsel to you, get some insight to you. So we've got to talk about it. Do me a favor. If you're courageous, go ahead and share this. And I need to go ahead and talk about some of this and help all of you. I'm going to help everybody. I'm going to help pastors. I'm going to help members. I'm going to help everybody to get this together. So good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. If this is freezing, go ahead and watch the replay. You know how it is when I'm on Periscope. It ends up being challenging, and I do hope to get a good signal. And we may get some trolls tonight. In the event that we do, just ignore them, and we will be fine. So, yeah. All right, let's talk. This is going to be a heart talk, and this is going to be a soul talk, and it may get very uncomfortable, but let's do it. I'm the founder of All Nations Worship Assembly in Chicago, and our church turned 12 years old this year, and we have been, let me see, since we started, I think we've had, this building that we are in is our fourth location. So we were in a couple of other buildings before we got there, but none of them were as big or as, I guess, significant or substantial or any of that. So we've had 4 locations since we were there. We started on a very, very, very small church. Actually, the building that I started my church in was a bit smaller than my current bedroom. So when we started, it was very few of us, and to be very transparent with you, I think we may have had maybe $50 and a launch team of 8 people. I managed to keep a few of the people on my launch team. Some of my originals are on their way back. I have mandated that they come home. But yeah, it wasn't as grandeur. It wasn't as dramatic. It wasn't as obvious. I was not at that juncture a part of a denomination, a fellowship, or any of that. So I didn't have any financial support. I didn't have anybody backing it or endorsing it. At that particular time, it was difficult to even convince family members that we were supposed to start. I had left Chicago for a time to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I immediately came back because I was trying to leave Chicago to live in Tulsa, to go to Oral Roberts University. Once the Lord was clear with me that we were not going to be able to stay there and that wasn't God's design for me, I came back home, and I was a part of a local church. It was an Assemblies of God church. And for those of you that know anything about Chicago, or for those of you that know anything about Pentecost or growing up Baptist or any of that, I was a Baptist minister ordained, right? But right before I started my church, I was a member of an Assemblies of God church. And in Chicago, there weren't very many Assemblies of God churches in the inner city. And so my bishop was a great man. He pastored a thriving church at that particular time. It was my first experience being in a multiracial situation. And yeah, that was that. My bishop was actually a very uncommon man. We had prophets in our church. I was very close with my first lady. She loved me. And in the church, it was probably about maybe 1,000 or so people, and there were about 5 of us that were recognized as prophets. It was my pastor's wife, myself, and 3 other people that served on like a prophetic council. So to be that long ago, it was actually very progressive to have what some may deem a traditional Pentecostal church or traditional Pentecostal denomination that actually had prophetic teams. We flowed in deliverance and worship and prayer. And to be very honest with you, I had a great relationship with my then pastor. He was a great man. He was a real man. He loved his wife. He loved his children. But when it came time for me to leave, I believe my bishop was hurt because he thought I was going away because I was moving to go away to another school. So when I left him, I went to be a part of school. And when I came back, I think he had intentions or hopes, as any man of God would have, that I would come back to my church and that I would pastor it or help him with it, because at that time I was probably the youngest preacher on staff, and he was probably anticipating that I would join him in the work of the ministry. Completely pure intention. So to be very honest, I think it hurt him when I moved on to start my church because he wanted me with him. So we didn't end our relationship on a bad note. I've seen him several times in gatherings, and I respect him. He's a great man of God. After that, the person who took on more of a pastoral role in my life was my wife's pastor, Apostle John Eckhart. Many of you know him. My wife was in his church, and I met Apostle John and then later married and took my wife out of the church. But that's how I met Apostle Eckhart, was that I met my wife there. Anyway, so we had real small beginnings, and so we went from we used to have church at 4 p.m. on Sunday nights, and people used to come. They used to come, and they used to get deliverance. They used to Cora Jakes Coleman, so good to see you. They used to get ministry. We would minister in prophecy. We would minister deliverance over and over and over and over and over again. So they would come, but they wouldn't commit. It was more of a place of a refreshing. It was more of a place of ministry. It was more of a place of impartation. But people weren't committing. I think that people wanted to see what it was going to turn out to be. I think people wanted to see whether or not it was actually going to live, all of that, right? So that was the early stage. Yeah, Bree's in here for hours. We'd worship, pray, cast out devils, and prophesy the entire time. We grew more stable over the years, but it took quite a bit. And actually, after I got married, for us to start to look like a real church, we just kind of looked like a revolving conference, to be very honest with you. But it took a while for us to look like a real church. And Brian Williams, good to see you. So as of recently, and I wanted to give that preface for what we're talking about tonight, because people feel like I just popped up out of nowhere and, here we go, and who's this guy coming around, But no, All Nations, she will be 12 years old. No, she'll be 13 next year. And let me say what I'm about to say in humility. There's a reason why I'm about to do this. My executive pastor ran our numbers and our reports. I get monthly reports on visitors, on members, on all of that stuff, right? So my EP just ran my reports this year, and or this month, and we are right around the corner of 2,000 members. Some people think that's very, very large. I don't think we've even got started, but we are just around the corner of 2,000 members. We average 40 to 50 new visitors per Sunday. 40 to 50 new visitors per Sunday. So those are not repeat visitors. Those are people that have never ever been. 40 to 50 a week. That's what we do. We do 2 services. We do an 8:30 and we do an 11:30, right? And that's how we're doing it. We probably need a third one. We now own property, more than one. We own several property, and we don't have debt on any of it. We don't pay debt. The only bills that I have that are revolving, aside from my staff, are utilities. So we own property. A lot of the property that we own, we can't do anything with, because by the time we bought it, and we bought it in cash, we couldn't fit in it. So we own our building. All of you know that we're, in cash. That is where we are right now on paper. Now, why did I say that? What does that mean to you? Am I being braggadocious or inflammatory? No. If I were to tell you that 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, that when people decided that they wanted to leave, that they had outgrown it, that they wanted to be a part of another man's work, if I were to say to you transparently that I took it well all the time, I would be lying to you. The beginning days, the pioneering days, are days of unprecedented discouragement. When you're trying to push a thing, when you're trying to open up the way to something, you're trying to persuade people of what you've heard from the Lord, and you're trying to persuade people on the call of God that is on your life, and make sure that people stay with you and remain loyal to you. It's very discouraging. So if I were to tell you that when people left or came with the wrong motive or came with the wrong transparency, that I always responded the right way, I'd be lying. I was like a lot of pastors watching this that got upset, that maybe took it personal, maybe internalized it, and instead of feeling like, this was just between them and the Lord, I saw it as an evaluation of me and my competence, and me and my ability, and me and all of that stuff, right? So I understand the threat. So in defense of pastors, I happen to know, now again, All Nations should be 13 next year. I happen to, and I'm not exaggerating, I could probably name 3 or 4 people in my entire pastoral career that left honorably. That's in defense of pastors. I know maybe 3 or 4 that left honorably. Hundreds have come and gone, but maybe 3 or 4. I could name them all by name. So if we're right under, almost at 2,000, and I'm telling you, after 12 years, that I can name 3 or 4 that left right, that shows the untold hundreds that strutted up the aisle, shook the hands of the people, gave the names, went to the classes, and either left out of a side door, or left out the back door, or took people with them, or any of that. I mean, hundreds of them, So I get it. This is not a Bass Pastors thing, okay? You may sense a little rebuke in there, but it's not because a lot of people don't do it honorably. That's just factual. But I'm going to tell you a major difference. A major difference now is, over the years, I've learned that every time somebody says, I'm leaving, or I feel led to go somewhere else, or God is calling me to do something, or I've stopped growing, it is not always a reflection of who I am, what I've done, what I've offered, or what I haven't. The problem is, people belong to the Lord. So I never, ever, at this juncture in my life and at this juncture in my ministry, take it personal when a person decides, if they ever decide to have the conversation, that they want to move on. I don't care. Ultimately, I shed no blood. Ultimately, I was pierced to no cross. Ultimately, I am not the head of any church. Now, the Bible says the Holy Spirit has appointed us as overseers, but these are God's people, God's church, and I'm not in control of these people's destinies. Nor do I get insulted when they appeal to what is active, what is stirring in the heart of another man or woman of God. Now, how do many pastors interpret that? First of all, my city, Chicago, is the home of Al Capone, right? And so we have a very mafia-like, religious thug, yoked up, pulpit terrorist thing going on, right? So it's like, if you, number one, we're very territorial. Okay, it's the culture of the city. It's like if you on one side of the city or on another side of the city, you know, this is mine. So don't bring your stuff over here. Don't have your stuff over there. Or if you're having a conference, let me know. And, you know, and all of that stuff. Chicago is very much so like that. Last week I held a conference on DC, and a pastor from my city, and I don't know him, and he has to not be significant because even the person he called don't remember him, but called one of my speakers and said, hey, I know you're going to preach for Stevenson. I want you to be careful. He don't have a good rep in the city. And when my guest speaker was telling me this, she said, I don't even know who the guy is. So he wasn't even a significant person, but was doing stuff like that. That's Chicago. And there's this invisible preacher committee. I think it's like this around the nation, right? But Chicago has it violently. It's this religious, you know, preacher consortium, you know, like Whoremongers United. It's almost like we can all be crooks, thugs, you know, abusive husbands, pimps, you know, pedophiles, all of it, right? But we stick together, and we stick together no matter who likes it, no matter who don't, and we deal with and devour people who make us not stick together. That's how Chicago is. But I'm assuming it is also like that in different cities where you got this invisible, you know, consortium of preachers who got each other's back no matter what happens. And so what happens is, when they see something that they consider is new or is on the rise, or something that is potentially getting more attention than that, then all of a sudden they go on attack. Who's this new guy? Why everybody was looking at him? You're not saying nothing new. What are you doing over there? Don't be distracted. Here are some sobering realities about me and people like me. And so I'm speaking on behalf of anybody that's building anything that's growing. First of all, okay, as this is stated on this Periscope, okay, I don't want your people. I don't want your people. I don't. I honestly don't want your people. Other leaders Visionaries, builders like me don't want your people. We're not reviewing your member rosters, shopping through social networking, attending your little concerts and musicals and all of that to find out who's vulnerable and who's weak and who can be won and who can be, I don't know, ordained, or who we can do hoodoo or voodoo on. I have had people in this city that ain't cast out devils ever in their life accuse me of doing hocus pocus. You know, I was impressed actually that they had opened up to the idea that invisible power existed, but to steal their people. But here is what you got to realize. First of all, this reveals a number of things. And one of them reveals that pastors are the most unpastored people, irrespective of their being associated with stuff. Fellowships, denominations, bishops, blah. You know, pastors often have their souls all over the place, right? Which is why they end up internalizing all this stuff when it's a normal part of ministry. God does not make permanence a part of the discussion of every person that comes to you. Will there be some that are with you forever? Yeah, I'm certain. But it probably won't be everybody that comes to you. And if you approach your ministry with the idea that all of these people are never supposed to hunger for nothing more, all of them have 100% of their destiny in you and in what you've built and in what you've got to offer, that they are in rebellion, or they are Jezebels, or they are Absaloms, or they are witches and warlocks just because they probably outgrown you, your teaching, or your church. You know, at some point, somebody's got to say something about how unfair, how brute, how irresponsible it is for nobody to call a preacher out on the status of their soul when it comes to releasing people. It's horrible. It actually is embarrassing sometimes for me to admit to people that I am a pastor because of the stigma associated with how immature they handle human resources. You know, people always say a war with China would be horrible, and why? Because the most important resource in the world are human beings. And when you don't know how to handle human beings or human behavior, you actually don't do very well by leading an organization. You might be a great preacher, but a horrible leader if you don't understand what it is to manage people and to manage people tendencies. Some of this stuff is just normal with people. You know, most people can decide who they gonna marry, who they gonna date, what their career is, and you're upset if they decide to go to somebody else's organization. Now, to understand this teaching, or as a support teaching, go and watch my YouTube teaching entitled 40 Signs of Witchcraft and Controlling Leadership. That would be a great a supporting lesson comparable to what I'm talking about as well. It'll help you understand the point. But all pastors don't want your people. Everybody with a big church or bigger church than yours don't think that they're better than you. They're not intending to be a threat. Nobody comes on your block or on your city or on your territory thinking, who can I bully? Who can I intimidate? Whose life can I start? So you really need to review why you think that way, why your friends encourage that foolishness, and why nobody sees this as carnal. That's what I want to think. You know, what happens is everybody finds a Bible verse or two to support their feeling on the issue, you know, and then here's another one, the notion that everybody that leaves you is betraying you. Guys, why in the world do we have to equate somebody's decision to move on with their life to a personal betrayal? Why can't you just want to go somewhere else? Now, again, I am a pastor. Are people crazy? Yeah. Do people do brute stuff? Yeah. Do people disrespect and dishonor and defame? Yes, they do. And they don't care about your stability and your feelings and your investment. When you have a toothache, you call your dentist, you want him to deal with your pain. You don't care if he's on a vacation. You don't care if he's with his wife. You don't care. People, when they are in pain, they don't care about your priorities. So I understand that, people can be bitter or insensitive to your level of sacrifice. However, you said yes to this, not them. And so how do you bleed out and get burned out for something you said yes to? And the fact that you said yes to God is an idea, or is a notion that you understand that you're leading human beings that are going to be flawed, that are going to be error. And if they were to be mature and to handle things maturely, they wouldn't need you. But we have got to stop, hitting each other like we're all the threat, and like we're, who is this guy? Now, when people feel that way about me, they never call me. What they do is they try to go and do some Googling or some research to find out who I am or where I came from and how I did what I did or what my next move is. And then what they'll do is they'll call my spiritual dad, and they'll start fussing with him because he's nice and full of mercy, But they never call me. They never say anything to me directly. They just always do it around. But I know, so through our fellowship of churches, these pastors that I lead and pastors that I teach and pastors that I cover have real nervous breakdowns, real emotional issues, because pastors in their cities or pastors around them think that they've come to take their people. I really believe that at some point we have got to clear up the whole assumption that when a pastor is obeying God, then it means that they're taking your people. Let's be clear. Number one, I only want to lead, and I'm probably speaking for at least 200 other preachers out there. Number one, I only want to lead the people God has called me to lead. I'm going to repeat that. I only want to lead the people that God has called me to lead. If in fact God has not called me to lead them, I am not interested, I am not invested, and I am not at all aggressively pursuing more responsibility. So let's stop assuming that people are coming to ruin your lives or preachers are coming to ruin your lives. No, I don't want your people. So that's number one. If they're not assigned to me, if God is not built me for them and them for me, because I think that it takes a certain type of people to follow a certain type of leader, and I think that it takes a certain type of leader for a certain type of people. So because of this, point number one, you got to realize that I'm not built for everybody. Every pastor is not built for every type of a believer. There's some people that I would probably drive crazy. And the reverse is also true. So it's about the type of people that God has assigned to your charge. That is very, 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 very important for you to realize. I don't want your people. The other thing you have to realize is this. When your church, and I'm not trying to be proud, I'm just trying to clarify some misconceptions to help you sleep better at night. When your church reaches a certain size, most pastors do not take the members in and go personally record their information and personally record their numbers and personally record their children's name and their birthdays to know what church they come from. There have been leaders that have been so upset that their pastors or that their members have come to me and I didn't know where these people come from. Let me tell you something. It is not my responsibility to leave my service, to go downstairs with the intake ministry to find out who came from one church so I can personally make phone calls to all of the disgruntled people that they probably left to make sure that that was in your permission. No, that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you and the person that left. I have no response. I don't know where these people are mad and angry. Like, here are my people over there. I don't know who's coming over here. I have no clue who's coming over here. So when your church reaches a certain size, the pastor is not the personal secretary. So I have no clue, Shay, you so right, what where they're coming from. So don't assume that a pastor in your city is fully aware that all of the people that they come, like they know, like a part of how they train for ministry was studying who went to what church. I don't know where these people are coming from. And to be very honest with you, I'm not going to give a whole work day to calling pastors to making sure they did it the right way. That's between you and that's between them. I'm here to preach. That's all I'm supposed to do. Sorry, I know that goes against all kind of preacher protocol, but I keep telling y'all I didn't join that group, so I don't really care about how y'all do stuff. The next thing, so I don't want your people. The next thing you have to realize is this. It is very possible for people to outgrow you. It is very possible. There have been countless people that have come through the doors of All Nations Worship Assembly that I was not the appropriate leader for. I just didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the patience. Now, when God assigns a leader to your line, they're going to have the skill set. They're going to have the patience. They're going to have the wisdom. They're going to have the word. They're going to have the anointing, both for your battle, for your struggle, for your war, for your destiny. And there has been a lot of people that have come through my doors who I knew another leader would be appropriate for them. Another leader would be better. I have actually told people, hey, listen, if for whatever reason the word that I have or the church that we've built or any of this is not what's growing you, I'm not going to assume that I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to assume that maybe somebody else is anointed for you. The whole notion and the whole idea that people can never outgrow you is the epitome of pride. It's the epitome of arrogance. It's the epitome of ministry idolatry. The fact that you believe that you really are to have been stocked with everything that everybody needs forever shows how backslidden most pastors are. You cannot have a current, up-to-date prayer life with that type of mentality in ministry, with that type of mentality with people that you are the way and you are the answer, you've got it forever. You can't. It's proof that so many people are busy doing the work of the Lord and they don't know the Lord of the work. I don't understand how you can have a consistent, up-to-date prayer life and allow that stuff to go unchecked in your heart. It's ridiculous, guys. It just makes no real sense. And to be very honest, I think most church organizations, denominations, fellowships, this is the type of stuff they need to be talking about. How to handle when people leave. How to handle when people come. How to handle, because here's the deal. Everybody has problems. Everybody has issues, and most of them are going to transfer. But everybody that's growing or everybody with a larger church is not aiming to intimidate you or aiming to steal your people or aiming to do that. It is possible. Let's stop acting like it's not, and let's stop contracting, our little thug bros to come and intimidate our people because we don't want to believe the hard truth that it is possible to outgrow a place. There are some churches that are really anointed with a couple of things, right? And so when you've got that couple of things and that couple of things have done what they need to do for you and in you and around you, then you kind of get bored because then all the sermons start to sound alike. The worship never does anything different. There's no way to grow. I mean, it's a school, but nobody ever graduates. It's like you can't move up in level. There's no way. So it could get really, 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 really bored. I understand that. If somebody ever, for whatever, my policy is this: if I can't grow you, go to who will. Let's stop acting like that as long as the dude who got you saved is alive, that you got to stay there until you die with him. No, okay? It's carnal. It's prayerless. It's the furthest thing from spiritual. You've got to grow people. And if I'm not the leader to grow you, I fully, wholeheartedly, irrespective of how much money I gave you, how many times I was there for you, how many hours I spent counseling you, I will release you to whoever God wants you to be with. Let's not make it a war, people. We are, listen, and here's why this needs to be talked about, is because it's a distraction. It is a major distraction. Many leaders are so unaware of the war that America is in right now, spiritually, economically, politically, because they're still worried about who's taking who members and snapshotting who's at what service. It's like, guys, these are all the cry of the board. It shows that many people are not really occupied in destiny. They're bored. I don't have the time to figure out what all events, and I'm not the police. I'm not the spiritual surveillance people. I am not the Holy Ghost. It is not my job to make sure that you don't go to a leader's events that I don't like. I don't do that. It's just too much, you know. And to be very honest, as your influence starts to increase, you don't have the time to even think about that. You got to release people and let them go. Now, here is something to consider. A value system, I can only speak for All Nations Worship Assembly. A value system of ours is that an empty seat is a failure of a Christian somewhere. That doesn't have to be your value system. That don't have to be what you teach your people. It doesn't have to be what's important to you. But at my church, we believe that God hates empty seats, because an empty seat is like a sign of a soul that has not been reached, that has not been ministered to, that has not been dealt with. So I despise empty seats, and I like to teach my people how to fill them, which is why I've got to prepare everybody to do the work of the ministry, because I don't have the time to walk up and down all of the streets of Chicago to do it myself. So what I do is that I raise them up, and that I impart to them, and I offer them development opportunities for them to grow. So we don't like empty seats, right? But if you're okay with empty seats in your church, I'm going to tell you what's going on. When you have empty seats in your church and you have the unmitigated gall to be angry, okay, that people are leaving to go other places, I'm going to show you what's going on. What's going on is that you forgot that in your city there are millions of people that are dead, dying, backsliding, lost, wandering, not committed, not in relationship, not in community, and not involved. I don't have time to worry about who goes to somebody else's church and act like that, because then what have I done? I have actually gotten distracted on the fact that there are millions of people that are lost in my city, and we should never have an excuse to be empty. There's not a person powerful enough to split my church in All Nations. No, not one. Why? Because I'm a reproducer, and I have pretty much been effective at reproducing every major role in my church but my wife. That's the only one that ain't replaceable. Everybody else, I've made sure that there are several of them. So it's impossible for me to ever have a church split, because nobody has centralized authority, centralized power, and nobody monopolizes one particular area. When I bring you on and give you a position in my ministry or give you a position on my staff, one of the first things on your job description is to reproduce yourself in somebody else. Because if you get offended that I rebuke you, you get offended that I call you out, you get offended that the Lord shows me something about your dirt or your sin or your drama or any of that stuff, and you decide to high trail it around the corner, then fine. I just want to make sure you leave and your skill set stays. So I'm a reproducer. And I'm a reproducer that reproduces reproducers. You understand that? So everybody else, follow God, man. You're not a personal trophy of mine, and I don't have to have bragging rights over who did what in your life and who taught you what. I would never look at somebody, even if it were true, this is just important. I would never look at somebody and tell them, I taught you everything I know. I would never look at a ministry gift that left, a singer that left, an intercessor that left, and decided, I taught you everything you know. The only reason you succeeding is because of me. You know why? Because the moment I forget that I'm an instrument, and the moment that I forget that a part of my destiny is helping people in theirs, then I become the enemy to my own anointing, and I become obstinate to my own assignment. The reason why many leaders are not effective is because they are too concerned about who gets credit. Too concerned about it. I'm not here to get the credit, even off of the things that the Lord uses me to do or teach or make possible to other people. It's not why I'm here. It's not why I do what I do. I do everything I do because God called me to do it, not because I want credit for it, and not because I want bragging rights on who you're going to end up being. It's how people who have unfinished soul work end up in positions of authority in and over people. Listen, I don't care. Amen. Praise God. Now, are people ungrateful? Yeah, they can be. Are they dishonorable? Yeah, they can be. But it's still not an excuse for you to come out of your character as a leader and to start acting like every preacher that's doing something that you're not is an enemy to you. I really do hope that someday we realize that most of us are on the same team. I'm not going to say all of us, because there's a lot of ministry gifts that are agents of darkness, to be very frank with you, and I don't know who they work for, so I can't even consider all of them colleagues. I will say, though, most of us are on the same team. Everybody's not trying to take advantage of God's people. Everybody's not trying to rape people. Everybody's not stealing money. Everybody's not doing that stuff. You know, I really look forward to the day where we realize that most of us are on the same team. And I think that when we do that, America will be in a better place, and America will be ripe for revival, and America will be open for God to pour out of His Spirit, because then I believe His handlers will be holy enough to administrate what He wants to do. We have got to see this behavior as not just ratchet, but wicked, carnal, unholy, distracting, unnecessary, perverse, and abnormal. I want you people. Only people I want to lead is those that God has called me to. That's it. But here's a final word of caution, and I hope I'm not freezing. It looks like I'm freezing, but a final word of caution and a final word of warning is going to be: don't assume that everybody sitting in your sanctuary is your permanent assignment. Don't assume that. I don't assume it. I don't act like it. No, don't assume that everybody God uses you to bless, or God uses you to open up doors for, or that God uses you to impart to, that they're going to be with you forever. And don't make it seem like they're unloyal and unfaithful, because they're not. Now, there are people who professionally hop churches. Yes. I wish I had my gavel down here, because I would bring it down. Yes, undoubtedly, there are people who that's what they do for a living. Okay, they switch, they leave, they get offended one place and then they go another place, and then some people get offended. You know, they want to be in a position of leadership, they want to control people, they want to control the leaders, they want to control the so I get it. Okay, I'm being fair. There's a lot of people who just professionally do that, but what will you be able to do about it? Huh? I have friends that people have left my church to go to that one, and they have had people come to mine, and guess what happened? We don't talk about it. Oh yeah, they over there now? Look, man, all right, please. And when they ask me, they like, oh yeah, they didn't do about it, or they didn't, whatever. It's not a major. If you will lose relationship, if you will break relationship with another pastor that you were previously in relationship with because a member left and went to theirs, you were never friends to begin with. I'm going to say that again. If you as a pastor will break relationship with another pastor that you were previously friends with because somebody left your church to go to theirs, or because somebody left their church to go to yours, you are carnal. You are carnal. You're not real friends. You need to be delivered from a spirit of rejection, insecurity, low self-esteem, arrested development, and probably a strong spirit of religious witchcraft and the occult. You need to be delivered. There is not supposed to, among shepherds, stuff like that shouldn't be a reason for people to break relationship. It's not worth it. People come, people go. When you've made a decision as leaders to work together, to be friends, you don't have to break relationship because somebody left. I don't care. Please. Listen, I have a couple I wished I could transfer out. If there were a way for me to write up a referral program, baby, listen. There's a lot of them I sent out. But it's okay. This is why, and in all seriousness, this is exactly why when you are called by God to ministry, you have got to work hard at keeping your heart pure. You must keep your heart pure. You don't demonize another leader because they have a ministry calling that intimidates you or that threatens you. You don't bash God's people because they make a decision to be stretched, to be exposed, to grow, to have new things taught to them. You don't break relationships with friends because somebody decides to go to their church and now you take it personally. You've got to have a pure heart, because here's the deal. Many preachers forget that this stuff is so active in their hearts, and they're preaching over it, they're preaching around it, they're preaching through it, they're praising on it, they're shouting on it, they're trying to buy property on it, they're doing all this stuff, and they're not realizing that a part of what's affecting them is the fact that your heart is wicked before God. They're not. It's not like you can compartmentalize it. Like I can feel like this about my brethren and feel like this about the members that have left me, right or wrong, dishonorable or not, and feel like this, in my heart, and then God still use me to the fullest extent, and God, uses His grace and uses His power through me. You are holding yourself back. It is a major challenge of every leader to keep your heart pure. If you're going to be mad at another pastor or at another leader, this has to be the rule. Okay, if I were running for president, you at least have had one full conversation with somebody that you're going to decide not to like. If you're going to decide that you don't like somebody and that they're out to get you, or you got to have at least had one full conversation with them to make a decision that you're not going to like them. Other than that, it's childish, it's extremely immature, and it's carnal. It's very, very, very carnal. So that's my burden tonight. I'm vexed that y'all got preachers out here scared to grow, scared to expand, scared to follow the Lord, scared to follow destiny, scared to move into their assignment for fear that they're going to be attacked by the Pentecostal Illuminati or the pretty boy preacher gang or something. Like they're going to be, come on, people. No, there's a harvest out there, a harvest of souls, a harvest of cities, a harvest of buildings. There's solutions to be developed. There are things to be done, things to be achieved. Let's get some deliverance, people. Every now and then, pastors need a couple of paper towels themselves. Everything you can praise and worship over. Sometimes you need to have somebody lay hands on you and command that stuff to come out of you. So, those are my thoughts tonight, man. I love you with the love of the Lord. I really hope we get this together in the body. It's ridiculous. Listen, it can't be denomination against denomination. It can't be city against city. It can't be, come on. Let's not be threatened by that stuff. What we should be doing is investing ourselves in finding out what our assignment is, what God has called us to do, how we're supposed to be committed to it, how we're supposed to progress in it, and how we're supposed to be pleasing the Lord, not how we can make sure we keep our numbers up by threatening people not to want to leave or come and go. Come on, I've been through it, you've been through it, we all been through it. We're going to go through it some more. And if you don't want to go through it, quit the ministry. Go and start a car wash company. And even then, people are not going to be loyal to you. They're going to wash their car at your car shop one day or your car wash one day and somebody else the next day. Depends on what's going on there. So let's stop acting like we have copyright privileges over people's lives and people's stories and people's destinies. You will be okay. And if you won't be okay, then you've got another series of issues going on. They may be social, they may be relational, they may be emotional. If you're a woman, it might be hormonal. If you're a man that has no men in your life, it may also be hormonal. But there's a lot of things going on, and you've got to be okay with the fact that people come and people go. I really hope that this blessed you. I submit this to you in peace. And I hope that this is something that you can really consider and really think about it, because it is a distraction. We are ripe and we are ready for revival. And we're not seeing it because we're distracted by stuff like this. All right. These are my thoughts. So long to you. I want you to get you some rest and find you a way to really, really, really let the Lord minister to you about this. But I'm out. I think my phone is freezing anyway. I don't know why it does that on me, but I'm out. So I'm going to get me some rest, and I will see you tomorrow. If you are in the Atlanta, Georgia area, I will be at Life Center Church, and I'll be preaching and bringing the word of the Lord. I hope this blessed you. Share this with somebody, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.